Hey, Curtis.
Hey, Oz.
What movie do you have this week?
This week, I've got a doozy. I've got National Lampoon's Vacation,
Mm-hmm.
plus Jurassic Park,
Okay.
Problem Child,
Yeah.
all spent at the Field Museum making a moldorama of a dinosaur. This week, we're watching Clifford.
Oh, Clifford. I told my kids I was watching. They tend to ask, what are you guys talking about? I said, Clifford. They're like, the big red dog? I'm like,
Yep.
no.
My daughter said the exact
Yeah.
same thing, but like twice, like a consecutive day. Big dog? No.
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 Yeah.
Terry the Scary Rex.
It's exactly. Welcome back, listeners and viewers, to another week of Let's Talk About Flicks, the podcast where we take a monthly theme. We are wrapping up Wives' Choice Month 2025 this week. This being your wives' pick. And so I'm one of your hosts, Oz.
I'm the other host, Curtis.
And before we get too far into the episode, we want to give a shout out to our Patreon subscribers, Don S., Aaron A., Mandy K., Melissa L., Coffee K., and Lyle M. Pardon my coughing. Yes, you guys have been.
It's just so choked up by our Patreon.
You guys have been listening to this for a month, at least a month now. But no, thank you guys for your continued patronage.
Yes, thank you, Melissa L., for inspiring 2 weeks of this month.
Yeah. So half of it is hers, half of it was my wife's, and we are here to talk about the fourth movie of the month.
Yes, 1994's Clifford, shot in 1990 and then sat on the shelf for 4 years while the studio went through bankruptcy or something like that.
Yeah, well, they should have put it out and it would have saved it.
It would have.
What are we going to do with this money? Like, they didn't know. They didn't. They were worried about bankruptcy, and therefore they weren't thinking big picture. They weren't sure what they were going to do with all of the cash this film brought in.
Yes.
It's very similar to how Nightmare on Elm Street saved New Line Cinema. It's like,
yes,
Orion Pictures.
It's basically the same story.
Yeah. You've got a nightmare right there in front of you all the time.
I've got a soft spot for this movie.
I do too, but we talked about it last week. It's not a good movie.
No, it's not a good movie, but it's all about the performance by the two lead actors.
Yeah,
it's
really
just
is.
That's the entire bit is just
Right.
these two actors. And it's just fun. This movie, just bombed at the box office. Just absolutely bombed. Roger Ebert gave it one of his most kind of infamous reviews.
Yeah.
But this movie, I wouldn't say it's ever. I don't think it would ever be considered to be like a top 10 cult flick kind of movie.
No,
but it does have a cult following.
Oh yeah, and it's very difficult to get your hands on. Like, it seems out of print across the board. I took my review from Amazon, and it was like, you can't get it on Blu-ray, you can't get it on DVD. So it's a tough one to get your hands on. Yeah. But yeah, it definitely has all of the traits of a cult film. And for those, I've always defined a cult film as typically your widespread film with an audience is it's a movie that a lot of people see a few times, and a cult would flip that. It's a movie a few people have seen a lot of times, and so there's some camaraderie there, there's some community there, if and when they can find each other, and thankfully with the internet it's easier to do so. But yeah, this movie definitely has all of the ingredients of a cult film. You either like it or you don't, and if you do, you love it.
Yeah. And again, it Problem Child was in the movie Marriage, that came out around the same time that they were making Clifford, and there's a lot of parallels there. And we were talking pre-show, Beethoven was another one that you thought of, which I think is a good comp too.
Yeah. Just hijinks and it is, and I covered a little bit more later on about where a film like this fits, it's, I don't know.
And the pantheon of cinema, where does Clifford fit?
Well, and it kind of gives a vibe similar to other films like that have a comedian lead, like Master of Disguise being another one of like, here's a very, very funny individual
doing a
bit.
Yeah.
And bits are intended to be short.
Yeah.
So when you take a bit and you stretch it out over a feature-length film, SNL got their film start in that.
Yeah.
And were very hit or miss on whether the bit worked as a full-length film.
I mean, who could forget Coneheads, the movie?
Exactly. Looking at you, it's Pat. You know, but it's like for every Coneheads, you've got a Wayne's World that, okay, yeah,
some work, some don't.
We can wrap a plot around this and make it work. And this has that vibe. It's not an SNL, you know, fit, but it has that vibe of like, hey, remember when we did this skit and it was funny? Yeah. Well, we got a team. We're going to make an hour and a half movie out of this.
Yeah, we're going to make this thing that's normally 5 minutes, 95 minutes.
Well, and it's funny because it's like you do that, but it'd be no different of like if you made an entire episode of SNL one bit.
Yeah.
You know, an hour and a half long of one featured thing.
Of Brian Fellows Safari Planet.
I'd be there.
I would too.
I'd watch it. I'd watch a movie of Astronaut Jones.
That better to get my credit card.
That rat needs a haircut.
Oh, my favorite part. We're a week or so out from the 50th anniversary show of SNL, and by far, I laughed the hardest during the 3-hour, 50th episode at just Eddie Murphy's impression of Tracy Morgan, his in-character impression of Tracy Morgan.
Yeah, he does a great Tracy Morgan.
Yes, he does.
And
he does a better Tracy Morgan than Tracy
Morgan does. Yeah, and it's done with a lot of heart. Like you could tell that he
a lot of reverence.
Yes, yes. Oh, it is. I do love Eddie Murphy's Tracy Morgan.
My lasagna's got 4 cheeses.
Oh boy! All right, so
let's dig into Clifford here.
Yes.
Get your shovel. Let's dig in. Who's in Clifford?
Well, our main how far do you want me to go? I'm thinking 4.
Sure, I even think even that's being generous, but
we've got Martin Short playing the titular Clifford Daniels. Get this, a 10-year-old boy.
Yep.
Martin Short, a 40-year-old Martin Short. 40. Yes. What was he? 40. He was 40.
He was 40. And, he would have been 40 and 90 when they were filming.
So 40-year-old Martin Short playing a 10-year-old boy.
That's the bit.
That's the bit.
That's the bit.
Yeah. And so if that's not something you'd be interested in watching, then you're not going to enjoy Clifford.
Because that's the whole movie.
Right, that's the whole movie. Charles Grodin playing the foil.
Yes.
Well, I would say Clifford's playing Charles Grodin's foil, the other way around. Charles Grodin plays Martin Daniels, Clifford's uncle, and an architect who's also in love with Sarah Davis Daniels. Mary Steenburgen plays, at the beginning of the movie, the fiance.
Yeah.
And eventually becomes Clifford's aunt. We got the great Dabney Coleman here as Gerald Ellis. As Wikipedia says, Martin and Sarah's boss who wears a toupee.
I'm looking at that right now as well. That's the distinguishing character that they include in the Wikipedia character synopsis.
Exactly.
Who wears a toupee.
And so I've got I couldn't tell you really any other, variety of titles that pops out, but I love a movie that's got Richard Kind in it.
Yes, I was hoping you'd mention Richard Kind. A very, very small role. He's only in it for a couple of minutes, but he is great in those couple of minutes.
Yes.
You feel like his head is going to explode at any moment.
Well, and it's like you get the vibe that in the first the couple of minutes that we see him, it's like it's a precursor to what Martin is going to be coming to terms with.
Yes.
Richard Kind plays Dr. Julian Daniels, Clifford's dad, who doesn't have much of a relationship with his brother. We also get Jennifer Savage as his mom, Theodora, and a blink and you miss it young Ben Savage.
Yes, we do. We get Ben Savage in this movie.
Yeah, as Roger, the runaway that Father Clifford
I don't know why I find his name so funny. Like
Roger.
This kid, this kid doesn't seem like a Roger.
No. Who Father Clifford literally lassos to stay at the
Yeah. You're not wrong. He literally throws a lasso around him.
And then just other people, but
yeah.
But that's your cast. It's really just Martin Short and Charles Grodin that ultimately matter, with Mary Steenburgen being the third wheel of that tricycle.
Yeah. I love Mary Steenburgen.
I do too.
Even though she kind of plays the same character and everything.
Right, but she always seems so happy and excited to be there.
She is. Yeah. She's the best traveling partner, that Mary Steenburgen.
Yeah, she's great. So, all right, what's this movie about?
Yeah, let's get into the thick plot of Clifford. we open on a drawing of a boy riding a dinosaur in a medieval battle. That is a pirate. That is a cowboy. It is a gangster. And we find out it's the drawings of Clifford. Clifford is a very imaginative little 10-year-old boy. But before we get too far into Clifford's story, we time jump to the future, Oz.
2050.
Yes, yeah, in the year 2050.
Exactly.
There's an old priest, also played by Martin Short, and he has a butterfly on his finger. On screen,
so stupid.
Yeah, on screen text says, "Our tale begins once upon a time in the future. The year is 2050."
Yeah, so supposedly like 60 years after this was filmed.
Yes,
so that would make this Clifford 70.
Yeah. So young Roger literally falls onto the priest, the Ben Savage character. He's packed his suitcase, Oz. He's running away.
Yeah.
He's running away. The priest fakes a heart attack to get Roger to stop.
Oh, look who's better.
Roger's running away because he's not getting what he wants. He didn't make the basketball team, so he literally blew up the gymnasium.
Yeah.
They didn't show it. Clifford didn't exactly have a high budget.
No.
And but 90% of the budget went into the end sequence. But
yeah, I think sometimes things are better said instead of shown.
Yes. And so of course these two they get into a tinkling contest in which Roger's, I have an IQ of 185, and the priest is like, well, mine's 190.
Yeah. He's like, oh, did I say 185? I meant 195.
I meant 190.
Yeah. It's just...
The priest then goes into a story. When I was your age, and then we flash back to the present. We see Clifford. He's on a plane. He and his parents are on the way to Hawaii. He's using his tray table to launch his toy dinosaur up in the air.
Right.
What was the dinosaur's name?
Sven?
Was it Sven?
Something like that. Stefan?
Stefan. Yeah, that's right. It's Stefan. Yes, Patreon subscriber Melissa L will shide me for forgetting Stefan's name.
We remembered. Rather quickly.
Yes, it's Stefan. So he's launching Stefan up in the air using the tray table. And of course, the woman in front doesn't like this, as I don't think many would on a plane. And she turns around to scold him, and he responds by saying, "I'm sorry, Miss Nice Older Person, but I don't know what you're talking about. Perhaps you were just having a nightmare about your early days in the circus."
All with a smile on his face.
Yes, all with just this grinning smile on his face. Oh, by the way, I love Martin Short. When I was younger, I did not appreciate Martin Short enough.
I didn't either. I do. I enjoy Martin Short now.
Yes.
For sure. I think he is uber talented.
Yes.
And extremely funny. But to me, I think sometimes that humor is very high reaching at times. Like you're not going for, he's trying to make his thinkers laugh. It's not lowbrow. Everybody's going to laugh at me. It's if you get the joke, we've talked before, just how just amazingly funny Jiminy Glick is, his character Jiminy Glick. Yes. And it's like, when that was a thing, I was too young to appreciate it. Yeah. But now I'm like, oh my gosh, this is so funny.
Yeah, and I think that's at least I think one of the reasons why this movie has picked up a cult following is I'm sure at least some of that cult is just Martin Short fans.
Yeah.
So we get introduced to Clifford's character really quickly during this opening sequence. Clifford wakes his father. Clifford, he wants to land the plane in Los Angeles to visit Dinosaur World. So again, they're flying west. They're passing over LA on their way to Hawaii. His dad has I think he is like a professional speaker.
Yeah,
and I think he has like a speaking engagement out there. And his father is just irate. And as you kind of intimated,
well, how did he wake him up?
Well, he took Stefan and just like
put him who's right like a brontosaurus, by the way.
Yeah, and just put him right up against his face and put his head
shoved
up his nose,
shoved him up his nostril,
up his nose. And again, you get the impression that his parents are just done with him. They're just
they're on wits end. They have one kid for a reason.
Yeah, and I mean, and that Clifford is just exhausting. He's absolutely exhausting, and Clifford's mother asks him to stop, and of course he says, "Whatever you say, sweet one who birthed me."
Right.
Clifford again, he figures out, well, if I can't convince my parents to stop, I'm going to do something else to get down to LA. Right. And so he asks his parents, "Can I go see the pilot?" And they're like, "Yes, just go."
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Just go.
Take your time.
And so he ends up walking forward up the aisle of the airplane with his arms spread all the way apart.
like wings.
Yes, pretending to be an airplane, just slapping the backs of the heads of everyone as he walks up the aisle.
Look at that poor old man that like wound up to smack.
Yeah. So he gets into the cockpit. He's talking to the pilot. He asks if can we land in Los Angeles?
Yeah.
To go to Dinosaur World. The pilot says, "Oh, we would only land in Los Angeles if there was an emergency."
Yeah. Cut to Clifford.
Yes, and of course we get some just the classic mannerisms of Martin Short. He just kind of smiles and just kind of looks, you know, like just up and off camera. And then we cut to the plane in an out of control dive. So he shut down the engines.
Yeah.
So he figured out a couple of the switches there were pretty important. He shut down the engines. Of course, the pilots were able to recover, but it triggers an emergency event in which they have to land the plane. There's some really good sight gag humor too as the plane is going down. There's a flight attendant is on a cart just rolling.
Oh yeah. There's a lot of like background stuff to peek out for.
Yep. So of course Clifford blames Stefan.
Stefan
made me do it.
Right. It's always Stefan's fault.
It's always Stefan. So then we go back to the future, back to 2050, and Roger tells the priest, "It's a good story, but I've got to go." And that's where the priest literally just lassos him, everything short of hogtying him. The priest then introduces kind of going back to the present, Uncle Martin. He's an architect working on a big public transit project in LA. His fiancee Sarah, who's a preschool teacher, apparently this building that his Uncle Martin works in is big enough that it has its own daycare, in which Sarah is a teacher at the daycare. Martin surprises and underwhelms Sarah with the purchase of a new home
with only one bedroom.
Yes, Sarah wants to be a mother. Martin has expressed no interest in having kids, and so, as you said, only one bedroom. Sarah's not happy with this. She was really seeing this, this relationship going places. I think you kind of get the impression that I don't know if I'd say the relationship has been on thin ice, but I have a feeling this wasn't the first time that this came up.
No, you get the gist that they enjoy being together, but they have definitely different pictures of what the future looks like.
Yes, could not have said that any better, my friend. So back in the airport, Dad is just screaming. And again, Dad is played by Richard Kind.
Oh, I know, which makes it even better.
He's just screaming at Clifford. And his hands, I just don't know what to do with this kid. Yeah, just his body language. It's just hysterical. And, a woman chides his dad for yelling at his young son. I think it's dad that says, "I'm dreadfully sorry, Mrs. Extra Wide Load. What are you packing in now? About 24 jelly donuts a day?"
Oh, the 90s were a different time.
Yes, they were. But again, just coming out of Richard Kind, it's just Dad is worried. I'm not going to make it to Hawaii. I've got a job to do. I've been contracted to do this. And Clifford suggests, well, Uncle Martin lives in L.A.
Right.
And we cut to Martin picking up Clifford at the airport. Martin shares that he designed Larry the Scary Rex at Dinosaur World, and he has a season pass. What are the odds, Oz?
Well, and Martin was very excited to chime in because taking on Clifford would provide an opportunity for him to prove to Sarah that I'm great with kids. Like, he really doesn't want to lose her. He does love her.
Yeah.
But
he knows he's got a good thing.
Yeah. And so it's this satisfies both parties until you realize it's Clifford.
Yes, until Clifford becomes Clifford. So back at Martin's, again, he picked him up. They're back at his place. Clifford is smitten with Sarah. Just absolutely smitten with her.
Yeah.
Later, of course, Martin catches Clifford watching what are like a topless women in African tribes video.
Yeah.
Which again has nothing to do with the plot, but I just thought was funny. Like,
right,
like just walks in and
it's a very specific film.
Yeah. After Martin tells Clifford we're gonna go to Dinosaur World in the morning, Clifford. I'm gonna take you. And of course, this next line really basically captures the rest of the movie. You wouldn't lie to me, Uncle Martin, because if you did, I'd be so angry. I don't know what I'd do.
Yeah, exactly.
Which, again, then the rest of the movie happens.
Right. It's just him showing you what he'll do.
Yes. So at work the next day, Martin introduces Sarah and Clifford to Martin's boss, Gerald. Again, Dabney Coleman.
Yeah.
Clifford immediately points out Ellis's wig. Gerald is obviously pretty taken with Sarah as well. There's just enough hints dropped there that, this guy's up to no good. Ellis tells Martin that he has 2 days to redesign the entire project.
Right.
In this huge city-spanning public transit system that he's developing. He's got 48 hours to do it. So he's got to tell Clifford, I can't take you to Dinosaur World.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Cut to Martin driving erratically as Clifford is trying to grab the steering wheel out of Martin's hands and towards Dinosaur World. As they pull up to I think a stop sign or something. No, it was a gas station.
Gas station.
Clifford overhears the next car is going to Dinosaur World. And so he pays off one of the kids in that family. One of the kids is wearing a dinosaur costume.
Naturally, yeah.
Yes. Pays him off and tries to stow away to Dinosaur World. Of course, Martin, finds the other kid counting money in the bathroom. And Clifford had asked, again, this has nothing to do with anything. It's just one of those moments I find funny in this movie.
Yeah.
They had stopped. Martin was going to go inside and buy chocolates for Clifford. And so after Martin busts Clifford says, so, any luck with the chocolates? and Martin just sarcastically screams back, any luck with the chocolates?
Well, because we get the scene where, Martin's at this gas station, berating the gas station attendant because I'm all out of chocolate.
Yeah.
It's like, what do you mean you're all out of chocolate? Well, it's popular.
It's chocolate.
It's like you're out of candy bars.
Yeah. Imagine that happening, a gas station in America running out of candy bars.
It just seems like a very specific, you just never think that it would ever happen. So when it happens in the movie, it's just silly.
Yeah.
I'm all out of chocolate.
So later, Sarah invites Martin and Clifford to her parents' anniversary party. Her parents are pretty well off. She comes from wealth.
Right.
And they're meeting Martin for the first time. So this is a pretty important moment for both of them. While they're there, Clifford replaces Martin's Bloody Mary with Tabasco. Of course, and then Clifford puts Martin up to make a toast.
Yes.
Martin just screams mid toast, just and to the disgust of others, he just starts ladling punch directly into his mouth.
It's funny for this movie because when you look at the cast list and you see Martin Short as the lead and he's a comedian, you think he's going to be the source of the humor in the film, but really, like the movie, like Beethoven, like it's Charles Grodin who's delivering the comedy, and just Martin Short's he's comical, but he's not the funny character in the movie.
Yeah, the humor is almost always Martin reacting to Clifford.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Or Richard Kind reacting to Clifford.
Or anyone reacting.
It's all a Clifford reaction.
Yeah.
But with those guys not, being as known to be as, I mean, like Richard Kind a little bit, but it's like they're, with Martin Short, you'd think, oh, it's going to be just Martin Short's funny, and it's not, which I think helps the movie.
Yeah, it's a credit, I think, also to Charles Grodin as a performer as well. So later at the same dinner, Sarah indicates that Ellis is taking her to San Francisco to open a new daycare. Interesting. Clifford then replaces Martin's lip balm with lipstick, and he's just sitting at that table, just puts it on, and everyone just laughing. I mean, and he's just like, and then I think he looks at his wine glass and realizes what had happened. Martin is then arrested for planting an explosive device because Clifford had recorded Martin's talking earlier, and he spliced it with the greeting in his answering machine.
Yeah. Keep in mind, listeners, he's 10.
Yes, he's 10 years old. He's
the Kevin McAllister of LA.
So again, he called the police and played the tape, and so he gets arrested. The next morning, Martin shows up to pick up Clifford from Sarah's, and Martin kind of playfully pushes Clifford's face into a cereal bowl. It chokes him. It calls him a name that I probably shouldn't say at our PG podcast under his breath. After putting Sarah into the limo to San Francisco, Clifford denies everything. Everything that happened at the party the night before.
I didn't. That wasn't me.
And the next moment here is, I think, Patreon subscriber Melissa L's favorite part in the movie, where Martin just turns to Clifford and just says, "Can you just act like a human boy for 1 minute?" And it cuts back to Martin Short just going, like making these weird facial expressions. Like he can't. He can't
do it.
Be a human boy. He just can't do it. So the next day, Clifford tricks Martin into taking a train to San Francisco, while Clifford throws a big party back at Martin's. Well, yes.
And just these little things of Clifford throws a party at Martin's. Clifford doesn't know anyone.
No, but he still throws a party.
But it's those little things that it's just so silly.
Yeah.
To think my son's 10, it's the capabilities aren't there, but it's still, it's funny. It's
Martin Short is not playing your son. Right
exactly.
Now either,
That's true. Now, my son is no Martin Short.
So while in San Francisco, Martin jealously goes to check on Sarah and Ellis, and he sees them at dinner just laughing and having a great time, watches him put a necklace on her. He gifts her this necklace. To Sarah, Martin calls Clifford a monster. He ends up kind of catching her eye and getting her outside, calls him a monster. And Sarah calls Martin a phony and just leaves him in the rain, just leaves him there. Yeah. So after Martin leaves, of course, Ellis shows his true colors and assaults Sarah in his limo. It's actually a little more, it wasn't super graphic, but it was just a little too far.
Yeah, it wasn't comfortable with the vibe the rest of the movie has.
Yeah, it was a little too much. She accidentally rips his wig off because there's the gag there. He was wearing a wig. Yep. And then throws it out the window, much to his chagrin.
Yeah.
On the plane,
she got him.
Yeah,
we're even.
You try to sexually assault me, I throw your wig out.
I throw your toupee out. So we'll call it square. All right.
Yeah, exactly,
boss.
On the plane back to LA, Martin draws devil horns on a picture of Clifford because what a better way to demonstrate your frustration with a child. Returning home, there's crazy music playing as Martin comes across a tied up Clifford. He says, "The bikers, the party tied me up." Martin literally boards him in the room, grabs a nail and hammers, and is hammering the nails in to seal him in the room. Clifford takes a call from Sarah as well. Sarah comes to save Clifford. And Clifford's, I got just another stupid line to Sarah. Clifford says about Martin, why is his face twisted so? Because he's mad.
Yeah. It's so Martin Short.
Why is his face twisted? Martin Short is an amazing insult comic as well.
Oh, yeah.
Have you ever seen him and Conan go back and forth?
Yes.
Oh, my goodness.
And even he and Steve Martin just...
just going back and forth at each other.
Yeah, and it's so... It's done with such love.
Yeah.
But it's so fun. I mean, in Conan, you could tell he just loves it.
Like, he's just lapping it up.
I'm in the presence of a master. Like, let it rip.
Exactly. So Martin goes to work to present on his redesigned transit system. There's a big press conference there. Ellis is introducing him. And right as Martin goes to speak, the model literally explodes. Just blows up.
Whose fault is that?
Yep. So Ellis, now wearing a hairpiece with a ponytail, fires Martin. Martin then kidnaps Clifford from Sarah's, takes him to Dinosaur World, puts a straitjacket on him for the ride over. Clifford is genuinely excited to be there. He's finally getting what he wants.
It's what it's always wanted the whole movie.
He's at Dinosaur World. And of course, Martin puts him on Larry the Scary Rex ride.
Yeah.
And we experience the entire ride with Clifford. Like it's only a 90-minute movie, and we're with him for a good couple of minutes as he goes through the ride. And then Martin puts him through a second time.
Right.
Martin then puts it into hyperdrive, where the ride breaks and goes too fast. Martin goes in to save him, because at this point Clifford is like dangling off of like a roller coaster
above this like robotic dinosaur's open mouth.
That's like Martin goes to save it, but saves it, and Clifford's like, "Aren't you going to save me?" And Martin's like, "Hang on, I got to think this over." And after
I enjoy like bits like that. There's a scene in Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory when everybody's on this mad rush to find the golden ticket, and they're like covering, like they just go place to place to place. They're talking to, like at one point they're asking like this computer program, what it would do if it found the golden ticket, and they're auctioning off a box of Wonka bars, and the Queen comes in. Well, there's one little segment, and it gets me every time. Is they cut to like police are interrogating, like they're not interrogating, they're talking to this wife whose husband has been kidnapped, and they've gotten a call for ransom, and they want her box of Wonka bars. And the police are like, put the phone on hold as they're like, so what are you gonna do? And she's just like, I'm thinking. It's so dry and subtle, but it's this kind of thing of like, clearly there's a right answer, but there's the alternative of,
it's a box of Wonka bars.
Yeah, and it's like it that little bit out of that whole sequence of all these different, that's the one that gets me every time, because I mean it's so well shot, like very dramatic, and it's the lighting, and she's just like, I need to think about it, like
just deadpan. Yeah,
right.
Totally
I don't know what to do.
I'm in a pickle. And so after saving Clifford, Martin just says, "You're not a real boy. You're just a destructive thing. Everyone will hate you." And then we go back to the priest narration, and the priest narrates, "For the first time, I was confused. I thought I didn't care about how Uncle Martin thought about me, but his words devastated me. I thought I was so clever. I hadn't figured out until that moment that if you destroy everyone who stands in the way of your dreams, then you end up alone with no dreams at all." Oh yeah,
pretty insightful for a 10-year-old boy.
Profound, yes. And then the movie wraps up pretty quickly after this.
Yeah, but they ran out of budget.
Yeah, like basically, Clifford had sent Martin dozens of dozens of letters, and they had all been returned unopened. Until one day Sarah requested Clifford to be the ring bearer at their wedding. Back in the future, Roger hugs the priest, thanks him, takes his suitcase back inside, and then the priest takes out Stefan and says, "Mission accomplished, old friend."
Right. Yeah, we did it.
Yep. Roll
Stefan.
Credits.
Yeah.
Stefan. Yes, and that is 1994 or 1990s, depending on perspective.
Right. Early 90s Clifford.
Yes. All right. Any final thoughts on this one, Oz?
It's goofy, and it's harmless. But like I said, it hits different. If you're young and we got, let's say, a young listener, and you are like, what, these guys know their films. I've never met any people in life that know as much about cinema as these two. And I'm young. And so this movie is going to hit different for you at 11, 12, 13 years old than it is if you're watching it for the first time at 45.
Sure.
And so this definitely has the charm of a film that if you have a relationship with it already, like you and I do, that it's not like your rewatch isn't as bad. We had the same kind of feeling for like Masters of the Universe, which is a god-awful film.
Yes.
But we caught it at the perfect storm in our lives, to where now it's got legs for us. It's got nostalgia for us.
It has kind of a silly charm to it.
Yes, and we know it's bad, but when it came out, that was what we had. That was the thing, and it's like you latch onto it, and it's. I use Masters of the Universe, and at a somewhat similar example would be like that, like late 80s, early 90s WWF, WWE reign of like, you watch it today. I have a hard time really getting involved with today's wrestling because it is so different than it was when we watched. It's like, you don't have Akeem the African Dream. And you don't have...
It's probably best that this generation doesn't have Akeem the African Dream.
Agree. But it's like, there's no bushwhackers. It's like back then, everything just, it felt so... not real, but it was so cartoonish across the board that you just got involved. Like, you didn't have a CM Punk that was just going to shoot it straight, but then again, over time we caught it when the WWE was still, I won't say it's not in its infancy, but we're still looking at like single digit WrestleManias.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? To where the magic was still there. And so you revisit those matches now, you and I, like you just sent me that clip of, Ted DiBiase.
Ted DiBiase selling the bit where Macho Man would grab his head and then jump over the ropes and like choke his neck on it.
That stuff would be obvious comedy today. Mm-hmm. But back then, that was a sell.
Yeah.
And you're like, oh my God, he got him good. Like,
Ted pivoted. He stood DiBiase up on his head.
Exactly. Like, and that's just what it was. As the industry has grown and become more ingrained and people are paying more attention, especially the internet, of you could, you can't play it that way anymore. But I'm glad we came up when we did, because that was fun. Like, just going nuts when Ultimate Warrior's music dropped, and it's like, it's a terrible wrestler. But you know what? When I was 10, I didn't know any better. Mm-hmm. And I'm glad. And that's kind of where Clifford fits in for me too, is it's still a fun watch, but the warts are much more exposed now than they were then. But I'm like, but you know what? I'm glad I watched it then. That was my first entry, and I'm glad I did.
If Clifford was a professional wrestler, he'd be the Bushwhacker, or the movie would be the Bushwhackers.
You'd be Bushwhacker Luke.
Not Butch.
Not Butch.
Luke.
Yeah.
So hey, folks,
which WWE personality would you associate with Clifford?
With Clifford the character?
Yes.
Ooh. Doink?
I was thinking maybe a little Rowdy Piper.
I could see Piper.
Maybe the model Rick Martel. I don't know.
Was it Essence? Was that the cologne he had in the spray bottle?
Yeah, it's like the very obvious like termite industrial.
He's using it to go after carpenter ants after he's done in the ring.
Exactly. I'm like, nobody applies cologne with that. But yeah, someone like a Doink or just mischievous for just mischievous sake.
Yeah, exactly. Repo Man.
Yeah, exactly. I like the Repo Man.
So every week, folks, Oz and I give our own unique rating to the film we yap about this week, 1994's Clifford. Oz, how would you rate this flick?
I'm giving this 40 shenanigans.
40 shenanigans.
Yeah.
Okay.
What are you giving it?
I think I lifted this number from the movie, 287 letters of apology.
You did. That's what Roger wrote.
So next up, Oz and I have been scouring the interwebs, searching for unprofessional reviews that tickle our funny bones. We hope they tickle yours as well. At our next comedy segment, Outside Insights, Oz, what is your outside insight?
It's a little long. It's 4 paragraphs, so I'm gonna read it quick.
Go for it.
This comes from Amazon, December 8th, 2006. At least it tries sometimes is the title.
Okay.
I rented this recently and watched it with friends because I so vaguely remembered it from my younger years, but the result was pretty disappointing. I suppose it's worth a glance because it's never unwatchable, but darn it, it just isn't very funny. I'm not a huge fan of Martin Short, but I do get a kick out of most of his antics and consider myself... This is where things go really weird.
Okay.
But I do get a kick out of most of his antics, and considering myself a heterosexual male, I'll openly admit I don't think I've ever been attracted to a man as much as Charles Grodin in a completely non-sexual way.
Okay.
Thus, it's that much more disheartening that this movie always works at barely working. It never crosses the line into complete debauchery, but it rides it with a type of hard-headed stubbornness Short's Clifford exudes. Grodin goes as psycho as he can in the midst of a demon child, considering it's a PG-rated flick. And I'd never get away with PG rating these days. It's too twisted. And it's always mildly amusing, but their dynamic just isn't that funny, sad to say. Short's Clifford, likewise, is curiously nasty and perverse, with his obvious sexual fantasy for Steenburgen. Just look at that face whenever he's around her. But his exuberance in bringing this unique spawn to fruition rarely hits the funny mark. Maybe it's just me. Maybe it's not. I'm a fan of most people involved in this disaster, but none of their real strengths are overly apparent. Even still, while I readily admit I don't find Clifford too much of a riot myself, I won't put those off who find it delectable. If nothing else, Clifford is unique. I just wish I could taste the sense of bittersweet opposed to my own, albeit tolerable, gag reflex. Only reason I include it, I think he makes some valid points, and he's not casting it off. But for me, it was the whole...
Charles Grodin.
I'm a heterosexual male here, but I gotta tell you...
I got a thing for Charles Grodin.
In a non-sexual way, though. But it just, like, that like, one half sentence was like... Why? Like,
jerk the wheel into the bridge embank.
I just want you to know, guys... Those reading at home.
Yes, you could have read it had written everything else and just left that sentence out.
Exactly, and that's what tipped it for me. I added it before I read the rest of it, and I was like, the rest of it's fine. But reading that, it was like that takes me away from your review because I'm like, that's the one part I keep sticking to. Is I'm like, what? Like, I don't care what your sexual orientation is, but. It's like, this just seems so out of place.
This person has also been checking every day since this was posted to see if Charles Grodin responds.
Right, exactly.
Anything to get Charles Grodin's attention.
Oh. So, that is my outside insight. What do you have?
I got 2 I'm going to share with you. Both, as always, from the Internet Movie Database. The first one is from March 2023, so only about 2 years from the time of this recording. 10 out of 10 left by Al Capal with the subject line, I think it's hilarious. Again, 10 out of 10. I grew up watching this movie and see nothing wrong with it, unlike many of these poor reviews. I rated this a 10 out of 10. I think it's really more like a 7 or 8, but I rated it higher to do my small part for society and balance out the rate. Balance out the bad ratings.
I love the people that are like,
I'm doing the math.
Yeah.
The other one is a 1 out of 10, left in March 2006, from Craig McCropple. Worst thing ever is the subject line. This movie, which I cannot even bring myself to name, is the single greatest crime against humanity that has ever been committed. To this day, I still wake up in cold sweats from the nightmare of that night. Make no mistake about it, this is the worst thing ever put on film. It is an insult to all your senses, and you die a little inside from watching it. The fact that some people actually like this abomination of a movie only tells me that they must have grown up under power lines or that they like to hurt themselves. It is the single worst event in my life. Anyone defending this movie must be brought in for psychological treatment. So you don't like it?
Yeah, what gave that away?
I wake up in cold sweats from Clifford.
Only reason I knew is because he gave it a 1 out of 10. Otherwise, I was lost on really where he stood on this
I was
film.
thinking that was going to come in like a 6, maybe.
Right. We've seen those.
Yeah, we have.
Worst movie ever, 3 out of 5.
Yeah. All right, folks, it's that point of the show you've all been waiting for, the signature Let's Talk About Flicks segment, the 3, 2, 1, in which Oz and I each share 3 goods, 2 bads, and 1 about this week's movie, Clifford. Oz, what are your 3 goods?
I liked the instances of Mel Brooksian humor.
Okay.
The opening scene, for example, where, Clifford's, Father Clifford is walking under the window and something falls and hits him.
Yes.
And he stands up only for something to fall and hit him again.
Yeah.
And he stands up only for something to fall. It's like, there's touches of that throughout. Mm-hmm. The movie, its comedy doesn't really have a overarching through line through it.
Yeah.
Some of it is very Airplane-esque. Mm-hmm. Some of it is Mel Brooks type, and so I like that Mel Brooksian of just the instance I just gave you. And then when I say airplane, it's when they're on the airplane and the lady's riding by in the background on the drink cart like that. I enjoyed that kind of just
me
stupid, too. Zany, but it's funny to me for some reason.
Mm-hmm.
My second good is that nobody melts down like Grodin. I think he's made a couple of blips with this and Beethoven of Charles Grodin will melt down. So let's see him do this. And he does a great job of it, of you really get that vibe of I am so angry and so over my edge.
Why is his face twisted like that?
Why is it twisted so? And my third is that, kind of back to the WWE stuff they're talking about, of the 90s still had opportunities like this in cinema.
Yeah.
Of just, things weren't stupid expensive yet to where it's you could get away with making a movie like this on a smaller budget because there were no $100 million budgeted films.
Yeah.
And so you could do things like this, and it probably didn't make you any money, but it also didn't lose you too much money. And so the 80s had a lot, and the 90s still, of just opportunities where not everything had to be a box office hit. Not everything had to be for award season, that they still just made movies to make movies.
Well, and taking that a step further too, it doesn't feel like one of, especially current cinema, where it just got stuck into the movie making algorithm.
Exactly.
And it just spits out what you expect it to spit out. It spits out something with Ryan Reynolds talking ironically.
Or it has the stink on it, just about every Netflix something.
Yeah.
You watch any of these Netflix shows and they all have it's they're all filmed the same way. It's they just have that look to them. And so, it's something different. I did get a kick out of it that there's 2 writers on this film. Neither one of them went by their real name. It's written by J.D. Rock and Bobby Von Hayes. But
they were a great tag team too.
They were, yeah. I think that was the Midnight Express, wasn't it?
Yeah.
but it's like the excuse me, those are the aliases of just two other guys, and so that cracks me up that they're like, I'm not attaching my name to this. And so that was all three of mine. Yes. Is that there was just opportunities like this still in Hollywood to make movies like this, and honestly, with some star power. Like, I'm not saying that Grodin and Steenburgen and Martin Short were ever like box office draws, but they were capable enough, actors and actresses that we've seen them in other things. Like they're talented. And so, I miss that era of just goofy,
let's just go for something weird.
Studio goofy. Yeah. And I think that's a big piece here. I miss studio goofy.
Yeah.
To where you'd see them go ahead and just make stuff just because. And they just don't do that as much. Yeah. We're still getting, more movies today than we've ever had before, but they all just go straight to streaming. It's like they're not readily, well, they are readily accessible, but it's like they're not all studio films with marketing. And it's like, I remember seeing the trailers for this and the commercials for this, and I miss those days.
Yeah, like you don't a lot of the streaming stuff. You don't see people doing the rounds and the late night shows.
No, at all. Yeah, you just don't, and unless it's already been a hit.
Yeah,
and then they'll be like, oh, well, let's put people out there. So it's all. Granted, it's always been for money, but even it stinks of it now.
Yeah,
and back then, I guess it just felt a little bit more wholesome. That
sure.
This movie's probably not going to make much, but hey, we had a lot of fun doing it.
Let's give it a shot, see what happens.
Yeah. What do you got for your three?
For my three, I'm going to start with Martin Short might be the funniest person alive. Like, again, I mentioned it before, how I really did not appreciate Martin Short growing up.
Right.
Like again, this movie has its hits and it has its misses, but like he's still selling it.
Yes.
And anytime he's on screen, just the stupid faces he makes.
Yes.
And like, the mannerisms. It's not even like, I get the gag, he's a 40-year-old man on his knees pretending to be 10.
Right. And he's not remotely believable as a 10-year-old.
No,
but that's part of why it's funny.
Yeah, like they're supposed to be like a hyper realism to this movie, where it's like you're not supposed to take it at face value. You're not supposed to take it seriously because it's obviously a 40-year-old man.
Yeah.
But he still makes it work. Like a movie that I think had anybody other than Martin Short been in that role, like this movie would have just been a train wreck. Just a train wreck. But it worked, and Martin Short is just hysterical. My second good, I'm going to go with just the opening sequence with the airplane where you're getting introduced to Clifford and his parrots. And like that little 5-minute scene just told you everything you needed to know about Clifford.
Mm-hmm. And it tells you everything you need to know about his like long-term's effect on you. Like, just to see Richard Kind react the way he was, it's like,
this is them with 10 years of Clifford, let alone 10 days.
Right. We're like 10 minutes in of Clifford.
So that's my second. And my last one is towards the end, where at the Larry the Scary Rex ride, the de-skinned Larry the Scary Rex was actually kind of frightening.
It was. Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. So it's kudos to the effects team that put that together and actually made it kind of like not like horror film, but like it was like frightening. It was terrifying enough that it's something that it would terrify a 10-year-old.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. So those are my three goods. Oz, what are your two bads?
My first one is the pacing of this movie's pretty bizarre.
It's like, with the back and forth between the future scenes and
just there's some scenes that are overly long. I mean, just again, it's basically a bit that we are putting you in like skit territory and then stitching the skits together. Like, and so the pacing of this movie is just bizarre.
Yeah.
And the second is, I mean, again, Clifford's not believable as a 10-year-old boy, but still Clifford's infatuation with Sarah is a little weird. It's like, I mean, we were 10 once. You know, I remember having a crush on a couple of teachers, but I don't remember ever, like, again,
having a thing for Mary Steenburgen.
I probably did, but just like, you still, like, at times where you're like, okay, yeah, this is Martin Short trying to be a 10-year-old. And then there's a time where it's like, yeah, that's an adult man dressed as a boy that's oogling a woman. Like, it's just, you know, it was just kind of weird.
Sure.
You know, it's
sure.
just weird.
I can get that.
So, but that's my two bads. What do you got?
My first is gonna just be there was only one scene with the great Richard Kind.
Yes, yeah.
And again, I understand why there was only the one scene. It wasn't a movie about his character. Well, but it's anytime I get a whiff of Richard Kind, I want to smell the whole bottle.
Well, and it cracks you up a little bit too when you think that, like, he was at such at his wit's end that he was ready and willing to leave his 10-year-old child with his estranged brother that he had. Yeah. Like, even we get the fun little bit where it's like, you know, oh, how long has it been since you've seen Clifford? I was like, well, I was at his christening. It's been a few years, you know, so it's like there is zero relationship between these two brothers at all. But yeah,
here, take him.
But Dad was like, you got to, like, and then I never see him again. Granted, you know, he comes back around, but it's just like, you're left with the whole, like, did he ever see his son again? Like, did the parents ever come back from Hawaii and retrieve their son? And so, yeah, it just, again, shows how horrible of an experience being around Clifford is when your own dad is like, yep. And your mom too. They're both like, yeah, absolutely. We'll just leave him here in LA with a man he's never met and a guy we hardly ever talk to.
Yeah.
And not check in on him. Never.
Like, no.
They are much happier without him. So, oh, this cough.
Yeah. I like your bads there, my friend. For mine, I'm going to go with, actually, that was your first one. That was my first one. Yeah. So my second one is, and I can understand how this probably contributed to the failings of the movie overall. The two lead characters are pretty unlikable.
Yeah, they are.
I mean, in that they're funny. Like, the characters are funny, like the way they react and respond to things, but like the actual characters, you know, like the traits, the personality quirks, like they're both pretty awful people.
Yeah, I mean, like the live action Dennis the Menace movie was similar.
Yeah,
like, you don't like either one of them. They're not supposed to be, you know. And anyway,
go ahead. And so you know, trying to follow a 90-minute movie where both of the lead characters have some pretty unlikable traits, I can understand how that could contribute to this movie's you know box office and, you know, the commercial and just audience, you know, failings.
Yeah, you're not rooting for either one of them. Brings me up. Last night we talked about possibly recording last night, and we pushed it to today. So my wife and I watched a movie. So we're going through trying to figure out what to watch, and we decided to watch The Strangers Chapter 1.
Okay.
Which we were big fans of the original The Strangers with Liv Tyler. I thought that hit, and it did a really good job of using empty space as a horror and then home invasion or whatever. And the second one was just like crazy fun. Like, they didn't try to go back to the same well. So the third one I thought was, okay, The Strangers Chapter 1. This is going to be like a prequel to the first one. It's not. For one, and I'm coming to where I'm going here in a second. It is The Strangers Chapter 1 because they are relaunching the series, and this is the first of a trilogy.
Okay.
All three movies directed by Rennie Harlin.
Ooh.
All three movies shot at the same time. Because I guess the original script was like 280 pages. Yikes. So they chopped it up into 3 and made a trilogy. They shot all 3 movies in like 50 days.
Okie dokie.
So back to where I'm going with this. As we're watching it, we were expecting a prequel of sorts. In essence, it was just a remake of the first one. Different characters, but it got to the point where, I mean, it was, even my wife, she goes, this is like a Dollar Tree version of the first one. Like, and I'm like, good for you. It got to the point we realized very quickly this is a bad movie. But I even told her tonight, I'm like, I really enjoyed watching it with you because we both were ripping on it and just having fun with it. But like same thing. You've got two people trying to survive the night in a home invasion, but when you don't care about the people who you're supposed to care about, it's hard. It's a hard sell.
Yeah.
Like, we're like, just go ahead and kill these people so the movie can wrap up and we can get out of here in like 20 minutes instead of an hour and a half.
Yeah.
So, TLDR, that same vibe of like, yeah, you're right. Like, neither character is likable. So it's, your audience doesn't really know where to put their energy.
It's hard to connect.
Yeah.
So, hey, Oz, what's your bad? Or, I mean, your huh. I mean,
speaking of audience, my huh is, who is the target audience of this film?
I think Roger Ebert even mentioned that in his review as well. Like, who asked for this movie?
Yeah. Like, it's not slapsticky and goofy enough to be like targeted to children, but it's also, it's hard to tell who the target audience is for this movie.
Mm-hmm.
It's not adults. It's not kids. It's not your like stereotypical comedy. It's just, it's a weird sell, which again, probably attributed to why it didn't do very well. But yeah, it's just, it seemed like a Martin Short passion project.
Yeah.
But yet he's not credited as a writer, which I honestly found kind of bizarre. Like,
you would, for something like this, you would expect to see him or that performer with some kind of writing credit.
Yeah. No. The guys who wrote it don't even want the writing credit. And so, yeah, it's just like where, and then again, like sitting on the shelf for 4 years.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you had it and it was done, and you're like, well, now's not America's not ready.
Yeah. America's not ready for Clifford.
No. We gotta time this right. So that's my huh. What do you got?
My huh is, what kind of person did I marry? Like, and that's the Wives' Choice movies for Patreon subscriber Melissa L this month. And I love you.
Yeah.
Clifford and Bubble Boy. It's just, and again, I enjoy both movies. I do. But it's like, I'm looking back over the monthly topics, and I'm
looking right now too. Yeah,
like when we first started the Wives' Choice month, we did have like kind of a romantic spin on it.
Yeah,
and it's kind of just evolved into just pick whatever you want.
Yeah,
but initially, again, it was Bram Stoker's Dracula and Secretary, and that's when it had the romantic spin on it.
That was the romance.
Yes, that was Patreon subscriber Melissa L's definition of romance was Bram Stoker's Dracula and Secretary. Then Say Anything and Saving Silverman.
Yeah.
Then Kill Bill Volume 2 and True Romance.
Right.
Bubble Boy and Clifford.
Yeah.
So we're really running the gamut there.
Yeah.
And I love you. It's just, yeah. That's it.
Mm-hmm. It's always interesting to see what she's going to pop up with every February.
Yeah. And even as we look ahead, teasing next month as we transition from Wives' Choice to Patreon subscriber month, once we get to Patreon subscriber Melissa L, her suggestion is a little different from the others as well.
Yeah, very much so. Very much so.
Yeah. But again, thank you to my wife. Thank you very much to your wife for suggesting the movies in our annual Wives' Choice month.
Yeah.
Yes, you both are.
I do enjoy this month.
Yes. I mean, me too. Me too.
I really do. Because it's like, these are people that we care, obviously, very deeply for. Yes. And I know my wife always feels that we just sit and rip on her contributions to it. And I've told her, I'm like, no, we don't.
No.
We don't at all. Like, these are movies that, I think there's just a little bit of insecurity there of, I'm kind of opening it up here, like Bodyguard and Legends of the Fall. I mean, she knows that, like, a lot of times we haven't seen the movie that she's bringing to the table, and she's just like, these are near and dear to me, and I'm like, Legends of the Fall was zany, like it held my attention. Yeah, how could it not? It was like all over the place. Peak meet Brad Pitt.
You beat me to it. Peak meet Brad Pitt. I can understand why that was a formative movie for a lot of people.
And so it's just, we've had a lot of fun. Like Hope Floats was a lot of fun. And
Hope Floats was a lot better than I expected.
And just even that opening scene of Hope Floats where they're like on that talk show and they're like, I'm your best friend and your husband's cheating on you with me.
Yeah.
And it's like, Valley Girl. I really like Valley Girl. Yeah. Fried Green Tomatoes.
Fried Green Tomatoes was a genuinely really good movie.
It really was. And this year, even Flashdance in terms of endearment. I'm glad that, both of our wives are willing to participate in this month.
Yeah. Show a little bit of themselves. Yeah.
Yeah. Because I know every year, I've got, my wife struggles to find a couple because she also wants to pick a movie that she doesn't think I've seen. That's because otherwise it'd be a piece of cake. We'd cover Titanic and Forrest Gump and, but she wants to trying to think of a movie that you might not have seen so that we can enjoy. So she can be there at my first viewing.
Yeah. And I appreciate that too.
I think it's a lot. It's a lot of fun for me. Yeah. And so it really does. I let her know that. I don't just play it off as Bill. Thanks, babe, and move on. And so, thank you to the wives for your contributions this month. Like you said, you'd already mentioned that we've got Patreon subscriber month and a half coming.
That's really kind of what it's working out to be. Yeah.
Yeah. We've got six paid Patreon subscribers. And last year we had 4 or was it 4 or 5? It doesn't matter. We had 4. And so it worked out nicely because they each got a week. Well, we didn't want to short anyone.
Yes.
So what we opted to do was we're going to give each of them their week. And luckily, April is a 5-weeker. Mm-hmm. So we will then do the first 2 weeks of April will be Patreon subscriber, and then we'll roll into a new theme for the last 3. Yeah. So it still feels balanced.
It works.
It still feels pretty balanced. Mm-hmm. So next week will be Patreon subscriber Mandy K's contribution. Mandy is a horror nut.
Yes, she is. And I had not seen this movie. I watched it last weekend.
I haven't seen it either. Last year, she brought Wes Craven's New Nightmare to the table.
Yeah, fun movie.
Yes, it was. Very meta. And this year, she is bringing a film that is actually 1 year older, but 3 years younger than Clifford. and then that math. We're going to be talking about the franchise launching Leprechaun.
Yes, we are.
Leprechaun, starring Warwick Davis and Jennifer Aniston.
Silly, fun movie.
Yeah. And Ken Olant. Let's not forget Ken Olant. I like Ken Olant.
What else has Ken Olant been in?
He was in April Fool's Day.
That's okay. There we go. I knew he looked familiar.
He was the straight guy that was like the survivor at the end.
That's right.
He was also he also played Larry in Summer School.
Yep, I knew there was the Summer School connection, but I did not put 2 and 2 together for April Fool's Day. So thank you.
Yeah, Ken Olant is in Summer School is one of my favorite films. So that's Ken Olant as he shares the screen with this actress who really just flamed out, like she had nothing else going for her. Jennifer Aniston. Is that
just flash in the pan.
Just sputtered out. So he carried this film, and she.
You know who else is in this movie? Leprechaun. Mark Holton, who is
really.
Who is Francis from Pee-wee's Big Adventure? Is also has a blink and you miss it role in The Naked Gun. Hey, it's Enrico Palazzo.
Miss Yvonne died today.
I saw that. I know.
And that happens. You get older, and that stuff happens because it's like. But I love Pee-wee's Playhouse.
Yeah,
I love even rewatching it, like introducing it to my kids, like. They didn't obviously take to it, and that's okay, but because it wasn't on TV, it had I had to force feed it to them. But man, 80s and 90s are a great time to be a kid.
Yes.
So, Mark Holton, nice. So next week we will be talking about Leprechaun. Yeah, I've not seen it. I mean, I know enough about it. It's Leprechaun. But I am curious to actually get a full watch out of it. I think Jennifer Aniston's acting gets better as her career progresses.
Mm-hmm. She wasn't awful in
No, you could tell. You could tell that the talent is there.
Yeah.
Social media wise, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, Shorts, the whole 9 yards.
Yep.
Like, subscribe. Want to shout out the Chicago Indie Critics Organization, a wonderful group of movie critics, both in podcast form or video form or writing form, but they do a lot of great work. So if you're looking on insights into more current movies than we're covering, that'd be a great place to get it because those people do an excellent job over there. So you got anything to sign off with before we go?
No, just I'm looking forward to Patreon subscriber month, and again we got a variety of genres that we're hitting.
Yeah, we do. We have a lot. So 6 good ones. I know last year we extended invitations to co-host. Do we have any bites that you know for sure?
I think our 3rd and 4th weeks we'll have some. The 3rd and 4th and last, I believe. So I think 3 of the 6 will be joining us live.
Okay. So we just need to work on the other 3.
Yeah.
So fair enough. So I doubt Mandy K will be joining us, but you never know. We got a week to figure things out.
I'll ask one more time.
Yeah, it's probably a no, but that's okay.
Yeah.
Either way, though, Mandy K's pick, Leprechaun, will be with us for next week. So for another episode of